is off on you.
Hello. Happy Sunday, everybody. How are you doing? We are here with the next episode of Scripting the Book. We're going to be talking about the Chronicles of Narnia, the first book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the first movie, or the BBC adaptation, if you got a chance to watch that, which I did, which was hilarious. We have things to talk about, guys. So welcome. I see some people already in the chat. Hello, Cool Gamer. How are you doing? Go ahead. My fabulous co-host, we're going to go around and we have a guest host with us today, Ashley. So we're going to start with Natalie and go clockwise around. Everybody introduce yourself and let the people know where they can find you.
Hello, dears. I'm Natalie Locke. Links to my YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. At least to YouTube. And if you go to my Ko-fi, it's linked to other places. That's kind of like my link tree. The main thing I'm working on right now is my flash fiction series. And but I also do TikToks where I cover like 5 phrases to counter cliches and live editing to kind of spark people in that editing mindset when they're struggling. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell, as simplistic as possible. Most of the time you'll see me distracted looking off because I have children as well. So that happens. Well, actually that happened about 12 years ago and it still happens.
Still happening.
Exactly.
Hello, everybody. My name is Morgan Lee. All my links are down below as well. I have a YouTube channel. Have one book published right now, and I do live streams every Monday. So if you want to hang out with me Monday mornings, you can hang out with me there.
Cool. And I'm Ben Pick. I also have a YouTube channel, Writing2Write. It comes out every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I also do self-publishing tips and tricks with Morgan, a different podcast. So check those out. Those come out the 1st and 15th of every month. So we interview self-published authors and try and learn from the best.
Mm-hmm.
I had to mute because my children were also, I also have children roaming around the house. My name is Ashley B Pedigo. I am a writer for children, mostly middle grade and picture books. And I also host productivity sprints over on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then every 1st, 3rd, and 5th Saturday, so I can have some weekends off of that divorced parent schedule from my childhood. Yeah, and I always have too many projects going. But if you follow me on Instagram, which I believe is down in the thing, you can see just a sample of them.
It's always a lot of fun. And I am Nia, the Vixen of Fiction. You are here on my channel, and I host this fabulous show with these fabulous people. We have a great time. I also host Author Tubers React, which we'll be doing next Saturday. Can't wait. We got some interesting topics. We even got questions. So I'm like, we'll be reacting and trying to help people out with some questions that they had about the publishing and writing realm. So if you're interested in that, and then I try to do live writing splits on Twitch on Fridays, but right now my daughter is getting ready to get married and my weekends are not my own. My life is hers for the time being. So
yeah, it's the cycle of life. You created her life, now she has your life.
Yes, very
and your pocketbook.
Yes. Yes. So you can find me. Everybody is linked. If you're not following somebody that you see on the screen, click on their link, just right click it and give them a follow and check them out whenever they're doing their lives or whenever they post videos. They've got some very cool content. And we're getting ready to give you some really cool content because we just did the Chronicles of Narnia, the first book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We read, we watched. It was fun. Mm-hmm. Does anybody want to start with what you read or watched?
First, I think Ben brought up a point. Can everyone say whether they saw the 2005 version or the 1988 version?
Yes, that's what
because
we're gonna.
I saw
that's what we
both.
want to. That's what we want to find out.
I
So Natalie,
saw
you
one.
saw both.
I
Yeah.
skimmed through the other one, but I watched the 2005 one.
Okay.
Yes, I watched the one with shirtless Mr. Tumnus.
Oh,
Mr. Thomas.
They technically both were.
Well,
Yeah, the other one was
Professor
kind of
Xavier,
cute
call him by his
one.
real name.
the cute one. Yes, thank you.
I know.
Yeah,
the
that's the
cute
one.
one.
Like I was like, I got a thing for mythical creatures now.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, and I saw them both. I had the privilege of watching the 2005 one with my daughter. I tried to get her to watch the old one. She's like, she took one look. She's like, nope. But I reeled in my son. I would, because he loves to read, so this kind of stuff interests him too. So I was like, you gotta see this. And he looked and he goes, oh, and he just watched just for that. He's like, you guys watched this when you were a kid? I'm like, yes, we thought something was happening. Like the cartoon things. Oh, so many things to talk about. They really mixed everything in there. It was hilarious. So yeah, so some of us got to see both of them,
Yeah.
and everybody at least saw the 2005.
Yeah, and I will say, so this book I actually count as the first book that I read after the movie came out, because I grew up with the BBC version and then the 2005 version came out. And even though the book was read to me, like maybe when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade, we were talking about this in the chat before. But it was the first book. I didn't read it until after seeing the movies. Like, and I knew that it's one of those, it's become a part of pop culture. So I know the story, I know the premise, but I just never read it. So I would count that I finally read it. And by read it, I mean audiobook, because I'm busy. And so while I'm working out, play it.
Yeah. And I will say for me, this, I think I put this in my AuthorTube newbie tag, but when they're like, what got you into all of this? And this was the book that let me know I love reading and I love fantasy. So when I was in 1st grade, at the end of the day, my teacher would actually, it always happens to me too. I'm like, it's fine. But my teacher at the end of the school day, if everybody behaved, we got to sit down and she would read us another segment from this book. And so like we were on the bad kids, like you better behave, because we loved it. And she also was a very good storyteller. You know, teachers often are very good at that. And she just made it so we just felt like we were in Narnia. It was the greatest thing. And then after this one, she read The Secret Garden to us. So I knew, I was like, I'm in for this whole fantasy thing. But this was the book that made me know I like fantasy. This is my jam.
Same
And
for me.
little Nia was like, this is it. I want to do that. Whatever this guy did in this book, that's what I want to do. I want to make that.
Yeah.
So anybody else? Morgan said, yeah, same.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that so many of my core memories are going to grandma's house and watching those VHS tapes of the BBC. And I know that they definitely did not age well. You were mentioning how they had the cartoon ghosts or the cartoon villains or whatever, which are definitely dated. But it was just so engaging. And I mean, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for that movie. They also had the Prince Caspian, the Silver Chair, and then the Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Oh.
It's funny how nostalgia, it's funny how nostalgia can forgive things not aging well.
Yep, I didn't even care. I'm like, I watched these little cartoon character things just float up, and they weren't even.
It was like they were exploring technology of the time, and they're like, just put everything in there. Let's go.
Kids like this. Oh, the beavers, though.
No, I will say, one of the things that aged well in the 1988 version is Aslan. Aslan's
yes, he was good.
Still be good today.
It's like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, the original. How you had those animatronics that just were so passionately made, and so in like the details were.
Well, and with Jurassic Park, the close-up shots was the puppet, but the far away shots, the full body shots, that was CGI at the time.
Yep. Yeah. No, and that was really good. So yeah, this is one of those, like, it's that the lion was probably it. The kids, let's go ahead and overall feedback. The kids in the BBC version, you could not tell who was the oldest and the youngest.
No.
They were all
Right.
pretty much the same size.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. So it was as a kid watching that, I only knew that Peter, which one was Peter, just because I had already read it. But looking at it, I would not have known. But other than that, I think that the kids acted very well. So overall feedback, just the 2005, that was excellent.
Yeah, it ramped it up.
I loved it. And
it definitely created the creative world. I think overall feedback, definitely, it had the whimsy. It had the creation. I mean, we had this conversation when we were doing our watch party of it kind of created certain tropes, or at least stood out in the tropes that were already created, such as Chosen One, prophecy, other worlds, time space continuum situation. Like, I mean, it hit a lot of the tropes in, especially like the Edmund's character arc as well. So I think the reason it is timeless is because it kind of set the bar for that. And it also kind of gave me Winnie the Pooh vibes of like the book itself, where it's like, hey, you're like, it was almost a message to his daughter of like, you're probably gonna, by the time this is published,
that was really sweet.
So that's what it kind of made me think of Winnie the Pooh, of like, hey, where the kid's like, so what did I do? Oh, well, you went and got Winnie the Pooh a balloon and stuff, like almost telling her the story that she's in second person almost. So, but either way, I still say overall good. I'll keep my one huge gripe to myself until we get to there.
Oh. Now we're all curious. What is it?
LWW.
Anybody else with overall feedback?
My overall feedback is I love this book. I love this movie, or the 2005 version movie. I thought at least followed the timeline so like closely that it I don't know. It was just a great movie and a great book. So yeah.
I remember the first time reading Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and my parents always picked us up super late from school, and so we would go sit in the library until they would kick us out because they were like, we got to go home. So we would go sit in the library, but the librarian was so kind and like would just give me books to keep me from bothering her. And this was one that like she was like, a series. I will give her a series.
Yeah, read this.
And she learned it real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Give her a series and she will leave you alone for at least a couple days. Yeah. I just remember inhaling the whole book and then being so excited a couple years later when we read it as a class and we got to eat Turkish delight.
Yes, us too.
Wasn't that great? I think I loved it when I was little, but I think it might have been because we were reading the book and she's like, we're going to make Turkish. That might have been all it was. I don't know if I really loved it though.
And then the experience of getting to see the 2005 version in the theaters was so it was so wonderful because it was this book that I loved when I was a kid and like a young kid, and now I'm in high school watching the movie, and it was like, this is what I wanted to see when I was reading the book. And then reading it with my kids, and we had the audiobook where they have the kids acting out the different parts. It's like a theater audiobook kind of thing but it's very, very accurate to the story. And I've probably listened to that 50 times.
Almost like a table read or something.
Yeah, like a table read where they've got an Aslan and they've got a Lucy and they've got all the parts. And the production is really good. We have worn that CD out listening to it so much. It's one of the kids' favorites. So I love the story. I love getting to share it with my kids. My parents loved that it's one of those stories that you can
Yeah, it goes through
going.
the generations
Yeah.
and stuff. I'm still trying to get my daughter into some of the stuff, and she's like, thanks. I'm like, was it me? Did I just think it was cool at the time?
Yeah, I'm glad that my kids are at the age where things are really cool, like cool again to do with me. So I was at least able to finagle them into watching these with me again. So that was a lot of fun. And my daughter, she enjoyed watching the 2005 version just as much as she did when she was a little kid, and it was already out, you know, so she kind of grew up on it, kind of things. And yeah, so when she's like, she goes, let's watch a movie, and I was like, hey, I need to watch this. You want to? She's like, yeah, let's watch that. I was like, yes. And then I was like, you want to watch the other one? She's like, no. No. I was like, but look. She's like, no, definitely not.
Well, if we ever do Gulliver's Travels, you can try and get her to do the Ted Danson one.
We'll see what I can do with these kids. I've got one who just thinks that stuff is just cool and funny, and he likes to like make fun of it, but also appreciate it. He's like, wow, this is what you guys had when you were a kid. I'm like, yeah, we thought it was so cool.
That was the CGI of the time.
It was, and the costumes and the puppets. Now Jim Henson, he had some good puppets, so he knew what he was doing. A lot of those definitely stand the test of time. Yeah, so anybody else got any overall feedback, and then we'll start really getting into some details.
I also have a gripe about the movie, but I know that we're going to cover that later. I just want to remind you to remind me.
All right. So what do you guys want to go into next? You want to talk about the storyline from the flow from book to movie? Or do you want to go into the POV, the book POV and the movie POV? Any preferences? Casting?
I think I would say let's go overview. Let's do cinematic, like how they did the world building, and then we could go into casting and then go into those specifics of the POV.
Yeah. Awesome.
So world building. 1988 was obviously on a soundstage, and then they just like put fog up and mist and everything to like on the train station, so they didn't have to show more. Especially, oh god, the painful part of when Peter actually had to stab the wolf. And it just got red, and they circled each other. And I'm just like, I could not suspend disbelief, because there's the guy who was dressed up as the wolf going, and like choking him. And I'm like, okay, first off, he's a wolf. He doesn't have those little thumbs to choke. Yeah, and everything. And I'm like, how many times did they do this and circle each other? And he's just going, rawr, like yelling at Peter's character. And I'm just like, I would lose it. Like, I just couldn't make fun of it enough, I guess, or something like that. So 1988 worked with what it had. It did. They were able to get some stuff, soundstage whimsy and stuff like that. Okay. And my son wants me to drape this over my desk so it can be a house.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but 2005 version. I mean, yeah, you and I were talking about how some of the wide shots. And
I am a sucker for beautiful scenery.
Yeah, like I feel like there was the scenery showing, oh hey, the Queen's house is in the two hills up there and stuff like that, but it was just so much more grand and and the 2005 movie actually emphasized how big Narnia is. It showed a time span of people walking, like even though it was just like a montage practically, it showed how big it was. Whereas 1988, it was like, and we're here.
I like the way that the book did it fine. They told you what was happening. The kids are leaving because of the war. They're getting on the train. The BBC version pretty much did the same thing. They're getting on the train, and one of the kids is like, well, we have to leave because of the war. So it did it very much that way. Where the 2005, they didn't do it like that. You're open up with the German planes flying over them, and their farm or their home is getting bombed.
In London.
They're running into they're in London. So they're running into the bomb shelter.
And
so that's how they're showing you what's happening.
And they go immediately into showing you the dynamic between the kids and what Edmund's issue is, and all the things that you're going to encounter later really get established before they even get on the train.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you actually get introduced to the characters in the same moment because they're calling to each other, going, "Lucy, we got to get out of here. Come on, Edmund, what are you doing? You're selfish." And like, and I think Susan was the only one not named.
Yeah, and the conflict with
Susan.
conflict with the brother, the conflict with the brothers is like right there. You get to see it full front, and it's like this. They've got a situation going with these two brothers that's not great.
Puberty.
Because you can see what Edmund's doing, but at the same time, what Edmund did was incredibly dangerous. Because there's a chance that the picture may have gotten broken, but as long as their house didn't get actually blown up, they could have gone back for it later. You know what I mean? But there's only one Edmund. You know what I mean? So you could see that where they're both like, but I'm right. And it's like, you're both right, but also you need to do what you're told, Edmund, because that's really dangerous. But also, Peter, you're really, really hard on him, and you've got to have some compassion for him.
And I appreciate them showing a moment where Edmund, you could see very strongly that Edmund thinks he's very much in the right, because sometimes when people talk about Edmund, they remember that he tries to betray his family over candy. Like candy and a drink, and he was like, yeah, okay, let's go, because I'm selfish. And that's what people think of when they think of Edmund, but he's not selfish. He misses his dad so much. He's going through the trauma of war, and all he wants is to keep his family together in that moment. And even though his dad isn't there, taking the picture is symbolic to him of making sure that everybody is with him. You can really feel for him. Because he's not evil. He's just a hormonal kid. Yeah, he going through a war.
He makes immediate decisions for things that have consequences. He doesn't think of the consequences, and that's a childlike behavior.
Yeah, it's very age appropriate.
Peter does the same thing. Lucy does the same thing. Like they kind of all do it. So it's appropriate for their age, but at the same time, also jumping to anger like Peter does, that is a age appropriate response. But I would say 2005 version did a much better job with the world building, like creating the tension, showing more than
why versus Edmund just seeming really bratty, and it's like, that there's a war going on, but because we don't. That opening scene just really helps us to understand Edmund. So that little few minutes of world building that they did right there helps so much to carry us through the rest of the movie. Seeing Edmund doing all these things, we have this reference to go back to that. Remember, Edmund is this kid that's hurting. Edmund is this kid that's hurting. Where we don't actually get that necessarily in the book or in the BBC version.
And that's one of the. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we'll get to this later, but that's one of the best changes that the movie did, is that it gave us those nuggets of backstory or even just like a facial expression or a facial look that conveys so much. The books, like you said, they make Edmund seem like a selfish jerk, and even the 80s version of the movie, he was very conceited, and he did seem like he was selling out his family for Turkish delights.
It did stay very true. Yep.
And this one shows those tiny little nuggets that make his betrayal feel more earned.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yes. I like the way the betrayal felt more earned.
Yeah, he seemed more fleshed out in the 2005. He was like the perfect character arc, I believe. And his siblings, not so much, by the way. It was like it. Yeah. But which is funny because everyone thinks of the lead character is Lucy. Edmund had a better story.
Lucy doesn't have as far to grow. Yeah. They don't give her very, even the book, she's not given an opportunity to grow or change, which doesn't make her a compelling character. She is just the character that introduces you to the world. But Lucy, and later on in the other books, she continues to be that source of good, the character that believes the longest, partly because of her age, but partly just because that's who she is. Don't they even? I don't remember how they crown her. Lucy the Good or something.
think
The Valiant.
Valiant. Yeah.
I wrote
Lucy
that
the
down.
Valiant.
Yeah.
But
Which I
Edmund,
was like, who chose these superlatives?
I
Like, was there
know.
voting? I'm just saying, like. Anyway,
Yeah, and I was
would
like,
say,
Edmund the Just, he's the one that betrayed everybody. But okay.
yeah.
And Peter the Magnificent, not showing your
Peter picks that for
favoritism.
himself.
Yeah, Peter
Yeah.
Peter totally picked that for himself. Peter, like, if we were talking about character arcs, I feel like Edmund had the best. Peter maybe, but his was so slight. I don't even recognize Susan having a character arc. Maybe because she was finally nice to Edmund too. Because it was like her and Peter were like, they fed off each other in leadership. Like,
Yeah.
and they, like, if the other one was on their side, it's like, yeah, okay, well, we're the adults in this situation. It's like, calm down. You haven't had puberty yet. You're fine. So it's either way, but world building, yes. Are we ready now that we're talking about characters? Are we talking about the casting choices?
Let's go for it.
All right, casting. Miss Xavier is so much of a better choice. That was like the best choice ever and everything. And I'm not sure, does anybody
Voice though.
Oh yeah.
Is
Amy's
he's
voice.
perfect.
Oh yeah, there were plenty of Taken jokes yesterday when you all were doing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
live watch.
Aslan's voice?
He's
Yeah,
perfect.
but spot on. And I didn't even realize it as a kid either. But what I find, please tell me, I'm not sure if this is a Mandela effect or whatever, but does anyone remember them being a little bit of backlash because of the bond between Lucy and Mr. Thomas because of the age difference when the movie came out?
I feel like I remember
Probably.
only because I was a parent. And I feel like
I remember people being pissed off about that. And I remember it because at the time of like age 14 myself, I was making stupid decisions and believing someone older having interest in me was okay. Not realizing, no, everyone their age thought they were a POS.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know.
I never took it that way, but it's
No,
also,
I didn't
feel
either.
like society,
Because I was so familiar with the books. I feel like
And they're
At that
only
time-
ever friends.
yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I feel like at the parents were having a thing at that time in the early 2000s where they were like really
Well,
kind of like
the
on-
internet at
Yeah,
the time.
and I'm
it's
like, no,
stranger
they're
danger.
adults
Like,
who
don't
don't-
talk to
yeah.
people you don't know.
we're not
You say
shipping
on
these
live stream,
characters.
something
She is
about
a
y'all.
child. Let's not ship a child with anybody. Period. First, let's start there. No shipping a child with anybody. Internet, calm down.
Yeah.
And parents, don't worry. If you read the book, they are literally just friends. No one has to panic here. Don't read anything into this. But yeah, I remember just little rumblings, but I wasn't big on the internet at that time. And I was just really into raising my very, very small children. So I was just like, nah, that's not a thing, guys. Calm down.
Look at it a different way. So if he had just left a child in the woods in the middle of nowhere, he would have been just as wrong to do it that way. And
But
yeah,
I
sure, he is kidnapping her for the White Queen, but again, there was at no point did I think there was anything romantic involved in there, knowing the story or even not knowing the story. Even the way it was filmed was very.
I just couldn't. Society, I remember, like, because I was 14, 15, or 16. I can't remember.
Well, and 2 years later, the Golden Compass came out, and people were very upset about that too.
I remember that.
Because the creatures are called demons, and like your soul walks outside your body, and so people were just real mad about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they also got upset because, not to ruin it, but a few books later, we have children who are not over the age of 18. They are still considered children by our society, engaging in acts that only adults should.
Yes, but they were never going to put that in a movie.
No. But they did the first book, The Golden Compass, and then forgot about the other subtle knife and everything. Either way.
No, they set it up, but the backlash was so hard that they, like, at the end of the movie, which is a different movie than what we're not talking about it. Hi. There was definitely no. We're not going to watch Batman right now. Thank you. Not in here because
I will say part of it is I remember when I was a little kid and when we're reading this part, we used to have Stranger Danger. So I'm like, Stranger Danger. But then she kept reading and we're like, oh, it's fine. She's okay. Dumbness is fine. You know what I mean? But I remember that as a little kid. But
Stranger Danger and don't pet wild animals. You got 2 in 1.
Yeah.
Here.
So then when we saw the 80s version, the 80s BBC version, I already know it's gonna be okay, but he wasn't cute, quote unquote, either, which I think that this is a problem that we're having in recent years where we did it with Labyrinth too, because we cast David Bowie as the bad. So sometimes you cast the bad guy as someone who is cute, and people just get ideas in their head. I'm like, it's still Tumnus, it's still the main character, but yeah, older you might have a little bit of a crush on Mr. Tumnus because he was super adorable.
The things
don't put that idea on a child though.
The things that they do to Mr. Tumnus in the movie, I think it would have been irresponsible to cast anyone other than an adult to play Mr. Tumnus because they really hurt that fawn in some really awful ways, and I think that would have been stressful for a younger actor,
12-year-old kid. Someone
I would say
12-year-olds.
2005 casting choices. The children were cast better because you could be actually see age differences.
Mm-hmm.
Tilda
Swinton.
Perfect.
Thank you, Barrett.
She's a gem.
Oh
so good.
I like any character she does. Actually, I'm thinking of noticeably commonalities between her really good characters are usually the evil ones. Where slightly good, but also evil, twisted, and a little bit. So.
Yeah, some people just do those really well. Like when you're playing the Borg Queen, and then you're also playing the White Queen here, or the White Witch here.
And then Gabriel and Constantine, or wasn't Gabriel?
It's
in the John.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
That one, but. Yeah, no, totally agree on her abilities, and I think she did so much better than the over the top BBC Queen.
Oh,
oh my gosh,
that wasn't over the top at all. That was fantastic Shakespearean acting.
It was over enunciation.
Yeah.
Like she must have been hit in the chin a lot, where they were like enunciate, and so that's how she speaks all the time.
The way she yelled at Edmund, I'm like, Edmund, run! Oh my god, she is not nice.
I like how they made the change of who said what, because they actually made the in the 1988 version, you're looking at Edmund going, dude, why are you agreeing to meet with this woman? She is obviously cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and is going to do bad things. She's obviously a bad person. Whereas Edmund's meeting in the 2005 version, they put all the hostility lines for her driver, and she is the savior of no.
Yeah, in the book too. Because why did book Edmund do the same thing that 1988 Edmund did? Why would you listen to her when she obviously just told you, oh, I can deal with him. I can get over. He's not that big of a threat. Yeah. She's saying this out loud to you. I know.
And even in the 1988 version, it was the characters spoke out loud a lot and were like, oh, well, I'll just kill them. I mean, would you like something to eat? Really? No one does that. If you're a cunning mastermind, you're gonna probably cover your speech a little bit better.
Well, and in the book, if correct me if I am remembering incorrectly. Isn't there a part where they talk about how if you eat or drink something of the White Witch, then you're it doesn't matter what she says to him? out loud because you're so enchanted. You just want
Yeah.
more of it so bad that
you
it
just
doesn't
want more.
matter how badly she treats you. You're going to
I
come
think
back
that
for
was
more.
before he even ate, though, that she said that to him. And then he ate.
Does she say it to him, or does the narrator say it to us?
What she says.
No,
I think in the movie, I know what she says is that you're gonna, once you come back and I'm giving you all these things, you're gonna forget all of that. You're gonna forget them. So I don't think that she says it's anything that has to do with the sweeties that he's getting. But I think that the narrator tells us in the book that it's the sweeties that make you just want the sweeties. I think I believe it was the narrator.
So like cocaine in Coca-Cola. Before they changed it. Okay.
Yeah. Like no matter what, you're gonna come back, because otherwise we're thinking it's not worth Turkish delight. Come on now.
No, it's not.
Which again, that is one of the tropes that drive me crazy. How many times do we have a prepubescent boy that like goes on this food mentality, and it allows him to make poor decisions because he was driven by food?
Food's a great motivator.
I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, I've always had the argument that like when you have children with girls, the early years are easy, but the teenage years are brace yourself. Whereas boys, the early years are difficult. Teenage years, just have your fridge and pantry stocked. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that kind of tracks though.
Writing this down.
Yes.
Well, so one of the
go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was going to say one of the really cool things about the casting and acting, and actually I have bad news for you, Natalie, about what you said yesterday. Harry Potter came out in 2001. So this, because you were talking about how the train scene reminded you of Harry Potter, it came out 4 years after the first movie.
Ben, you didn't have to make me feel even older than I already
came
am.
out.
Oh, yeah. In terms of the book, we were doing a live party yesterday, and Natalie was talking about how you couldn't remember the order and how the
I mean, it's British people on a train, and I just wanted someone to go, anything from the trolley, dear?
Well, yes.
Go ahead. You?
Okay. I was going to say my point was that they did great casting for these actors and actresses, in that they were looking to build out the franchise. So Lucy, the actress who played her, was fantastic for this role, and same with Edmund. And because we have Harry Potter already, and we saw what Harry, Hermione, Rupert, how they were and how they were evolving throughout the series, they did a great job with casting these actors as well, because they saw them as kids, but they saw what they would become in the future movies, which is really kind of incredible if you think about it, because that is a perk of having the books
already done.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
All right.
Still, I mean, you have no idea what somebody who might have been 10 years old at the time is going to be like when they're 18.
This is true. Like someone could have turned out to be a hot mess, and then what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time, I think, had that problem. Sorry for Once Upon a Time fans, but yeah. If you watched, you know what I'm talking about. No shade on the young man. I'm sure he was doing his best, but you don't know. How they're going to grow, how they're going to grow into their acting when they're that age. You're really taking a gamble, especially when you have a very long, very popular series, and and sometimes, especially this was all happening in the age of internet. And I just remember that with Once Upon a Time, I'd go on the internet and people were not nice. And I was like, oh, he's just a kid. Leave him alone. It felt mean. Like, I'm sure that they know the situation that they have. There wasn't any reason for, you know what I mean? So they got really lucky. These kids were very good actors. So
very good.
Yeah, Susan went on to play other characters. Like she's one whose face I recognize. Though it sucks because knowing this came out in 2005, I'm watching it and I'm like, all these kids probably have kids of their own right by now.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the disappointing thing too, is that the people who played Lucy and Edmund didn't really have much else aside from this, even though they were fantastic in this role.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got world building and casting. What is the
There's
next?
there's more to casting though,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we got to talk about the costumes and the puppets and the CGI characters, because they are real characters. The Beavers, I love the 2005 Beavers.
Like
And
the Beavers, the banter. I love the banter. Like I'm here for sarcasm. Like the old married couple that just like doesn't put up with each other's BS and everything. I'm all for it. And I even fleshing out characters that weren't even mentioned, like the Centaur, in the 2005 version. Like I'm actually rooting for Helm at the end when I barely know anything about him. And then they even had Mr. Thomas. He mentions his father. Like that wasn't really talked about before in the 2005 version.
Yeah, they really did a good job of really personalizing all of these, characters, the animated characters, or the CGI characters, I guess you should say, or were they? What were they? Were they all CGI'd?
I'm pretty sure
so. I don't think they had any puppets in them.
Yeah,
not in 2005. I don't think.
Like, I don't think any of them were.
The wolves. Some of the wolves might have been real.
Yeah. Some
it's in some shots for sure.
Shots, yeah.
Some shots, but for the most part.
Yeah.
The ones where they look like puppy dogs and not very menacing.
Yeah. And even in the 2008, they were real when the wolves were real when they were like running away, or they would just have them running off into the woods. But then when they had to talk, they suddenly were in costume.
Oh, you mean in the 88?
In the 80s version?
It was so bad. Like you have this real dog come up, and then right before it talks, it was a like crossfade transition, and then you have this person standing there that's in gray fur and the muzzle glued onto their face and going roar, like, and I'm like, the person roaring, why?
Shakespeare and actors.
That actually
there are no small roles.
Yeah, true. Like they lived it up. Like I imagine, like I bet if you took this entire cast and made them the cast of Cats, it could have redeemed itself.
Yeah. When my son and I were watching, there was many mentions of cats. But even with the Beavers, even in the 80s version, the Beavers, their acting was fine. It's the costumes that now threw me off. I don't think it bothered me back then, but it didn't bother me back then. But they couldn't even move their legs. Like they should have just given them some baggy pants with fur on them. But they gave them, they were in this like tube. So
it was like when you wear a sack, like or a pencil.
And then you're like, can't move your legs. So you're moving your legs like this.
Mermaid dresses.
Because
they were waddling the whole time.
That is how their legs were moving in the poor Beaver.
Well, and then Mr. Thomas it was like furry pants.
Yeah, he had they could have just done that with the Beavers then, but they had a lot of fur on him. I don't know if he was wearing a fur shirt.
I'm not sure how much of that fur was like added on or just his natural
hair.
I don't know. Like where he's just a hairy dude, and it's like part of his like screening was like, hey, take your shirt off. He goes, yeah, I'm already preset. Like.
But yeah, not bad acting. Fine their acting I think was fine for the 80s. The Queen's acting was way over the top.
Way over the top. Like like I said, it was like an over enunciation. Like she made her mouth bigger. I'm trying to imitate it a little bit. But it's like her voice at times was soft. But yet she was overusing her mouth. So what? Pray tell are you? I'm like, dude, lower the eyebrows. It's okay.
It's like
you're not surprised all the time.
Yeah, her costumes were something else. But my son was like, they're really leaning into the camp on the Queen, aren't they? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Because
they didn't. Actually, in the 2005 version, they changed the Queen's outfits like way more than the other one.
Yeah, she had like 3 or 4 costume changes.
But still, it was great.
What else would you do with all that magic besides, transforming?
Yeah. Which part? Oh, let's talk about this because we touched on this in the 2005 version. It was more orchestra music. But thank you. I love your support. He's laughing at me. My husband is home now, so. But the orchestra of 1988, it was just kind of Like it added a little bit to it, but it was really just like, hey, the credits are coming. Okay, I'm skipping to the next episode.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't really music. Whereas the music for the 2005, it played into it. We had like whimsical new age, like Enya, like kind of a building there. And then we also had the 1940s, like
when they were running to hide.
Running to hide, that
they played
jukebox
Go
of
Johnny,
like,
Go Johnny,
go Johnny,
yeah,
go. Yeah, and like,
and I'm like, so brought you right into the time period.
It set the time period even more so. And I thought that was beautifully done, how music was, because especially with the grand, they brought the whimsy again right when they were entering camp, and they saw the cherry blossoms form a person. I think it was Lucy that saw it. And that had that music there of that whimsy and such. And they did really good with the absence of music at times, such as the first time she sees the wardrobe, and then all you hear is the fabric, like slow mode coming off, and that whimsy of the fabric coming down. And then also again with right before battle, right before they touch, like the typical battle scene of where it's like drums hype up and then charge, and everyone charges, and then as they're running, silence, and then this sound turns back on right as they collide.
Yeah, they did a lot of things really, really well, just with the characters and how the characters brought things to life. I think we mentioned it before, but I liked Aslan. I loved the voice of Aslan in 2005. Oh my goodness, it was perfect. And the Aslan voice in the 80s version was fine, but both of them, I wanted more in their roar. I don't know if I wanted more of a Lion King roar, but I wanted more.
1988, I needed roar. It was like a little cat going.
Yeah,
like
it was better in 2005.
2005 had a better roar. Yeah,
but even when he roars and she sits down in the queen sat down in her seat really abruptly. I wanted, I don't know, I wanted a big, like with the cartoon. Remember the Looney Tunes cartoon what was it when the ending and the lion would just roar really?
Yeah.
I wanted that.
MGM. I think.
MGM. Okay. Yeah. I wanted a little bit bigger, but I'm like, okay, it's fine.
Well, and really, it could have if you just amped up the bass so that you would feel it more while you're watching that scene.
Yes.
Which, by the way, sitting down, kind of taking it back, is so much better than the running away.
Yeah.
Like in the 1988 version. I was like, really? You're scared? Okay. Yeah. It was so many eye roll moments. I got through it though.
I feel like I kind of want to talk about just some general differences. We don't have to talk about our favorite and our least favorite just yet, but just general.
Technology got better.
Technology. That was huge.
I am glad that none of them, the original book was set with World War II in mind. And none of the movies changed that. I'm glad. Yeah. Like because many times we go, that's too much. But, and I like the more action, like almost dramatization that the 2005 movie had, because I was watching the episodes of 1988 and I'm like, oh my God, we're 4 episodes in and I haven't even seen them meet Aslan yet. What the hell? And then 2005 is like, sweet. Like they were meeting Aslan, I think during the second part. So after 40 minutes, because 40 minutes they just entered Narnia. But I mean, they actually all were in Narnia after 40 minutes. And I was like, bravo, let's go.
Yep. Really got us moving along a lot faster. Generally speaking, the differences that all of the changes that were made mostly worked for me. I'm trying to think I want to say my worst changes. But one of the things that they did, and I was wondering how they were going to do it, but they had for the 80s version, that internal dialogue that Edmund was having about betraying himself. The 80s version, they gave us another Edmund. There was like Edmund in the red shadow or red light.
I didn't like that.
That was weird.
You do what you can with the technology you have.
Yeah, again, technology. So that was a strange.
To me, that was like straight up telling.
It was
situation.
Telling. It was telling. Because I don't think that they had a way to explain that Edmund actually was thinking about maybe I shouldn't do this. So because it was internal dialogue that Edmund was having, they could have just done a voiceover maybe, but they actually made another
even
Edmund.
voiceover
Have
would be
him
a
having-
cop out.
Yeah.
I feel they did other
Because
ways.
2005 version had already established that Edmund was having conflicted emotions. So we already knew leading up.
Sometimes it should take a shot lingering on the face after a line said. That sometimes that is enough.
Yeah.
Mhm. Let me see. Anybody else got any general different things that they noticed?
Yeah, I'm ready for favorites and least favorites.
All right, let's go. Let's go for them. Let me. Go ahead, Natalie. What you want to start with favorites or least favorites first?
I'll go with the happy changes. Like, I hated this in the book, but I'm glad both movies, I know verified, both movies did not have this in it. And it is when Santa comes around and is giving everyone their gifts. In the book, he tells Susan and Lucy, oh no, war is ugly when women get involved. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what?
That's very 1950s.
Sexist, like 100%,
Yeah.
like the epitome. And I was and the fact that I thought 1998 might bring it in, and they kept the lines of, "Oh, your bow and arrow and your dagger are not for war." They kept that in, but they kind of like
self-defense
skipped it.
Yeah.
Any other sense, but I'm glad the movies did not include that, because listening to it. Because, I mean, even today, there's lines of, like, women shouldn't be in the military or in leadership positions or something. We're emotional. And I get emotional and validate their argument a little bit when they say that stuff.
But, like, they don't.
I mean, the fact that they're all kids is probably a good enough reason in itself. But yeah.
Exactly. Like, let's use the kid argument first before we start throwing the sex you were born with argument, okay? So that is my gripe, and I'm still peeved about it, but also it's kind of a recognition of the time, just like other books when they were written, like such as Huckleberry Finn, when it was written in its time, it's a different thing versus this book written in this time, and a contemporary novel would be written differently to have those moments. So
yeah,
I still am pissed off, but I feel better sharing it with a like company.
Yeah, one change that I felt like I was kind of neutral on until I watched the movie again was how we meet the professor. I actually liked that he was kind of a mystery, until Lucy runs into him. Because, in the book and in the movie, he's introduced, and I do like because I like the way that he's introduced in the movie and in the book, and he's like, oh, these kids don't want to let the kids eat in their room.
In the 88 version, he was introduced like snappy and snarky and stuff like that. In 2005, Lucy hugs him and he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
What do I do with kids? It's a child. It's hugging me.
Like, get this one some hot chocolate, okay?
And like,
so yeah, go ahead.
So Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the first book published, but it's the second book in the series, because there's the book that comes before
The Magician's Nephew.
The Magician's Nephew, and spoilers maybe for this 70-year-old book. Sorry. The professor has already been to Narnia, and that's why, but he never comes out and says it. And I really appreciate that he tells the kids, well, there's two options. Either she's telling the truth or she's lying. You've already told me she's a truthful person. Between the two of them, so obviously she must be telling the truth. But he doesn't say, I've been there. He lets the kids come to their own conclusions. He just kind of guides them along, and I appreciate that very much. I know it didn't change from book to movie, but I appreciate that about him, and I feel like they do a better job of hinting at that in the movie than they do in the book. In the book, you only know it if you've read The Magician's Nephew.
Well, I was always suspicious, even as a child. I was suspicious about, because I just was, because he had a lot of, I felt like he knew stuff like, he's an adult and he's basically telling them that they should believe Lucy. I was already suspicious then. And then
Yeah.
at the end, when he's like,
Oh, you can't get back in that way.
You can't. I'm like, how do you know? You've been. How did you get in? You know what I mean? So I was just that kid who was always suspicious. But yeah.
Suspicious of adults who believe in kid things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the big thing, is that if he had told them that Narnia is real, then they wouldn't have been able to go, because the whole point is that you have to believe, and that's what allows you to go to these fancy worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked Lucy's introduction to Mr. Tumnus in the 2005 version better. Both were fine. But even in the 2008 movie, or 2008, in the 80s BBC version, Tumnus sticks out his hand to shake her hand. But but they don't shake hands. But still, the fact that he did, it's kind of like, how did they know about Turkish Delight? That whole conversation. But I like that Tumnus is like looking at her hand like, what do you do with that? She's like, you shake it. You know, she had to explain it to him because their customs are different. They're not from the same world. And this is his first time meeting a human. So the fact that he was a little bit nervous, like, what is this? I've never seen, you know, a girl. So he's like, kind of like hides a little bit. And then he's like, wait, it's safe. And she comes out. So I like the 2005 introduction a little bit better. Not that I hated the book or the BBC version.
And that scene is so important because C.S. Lewis said when he was when he was writing this story, this is the first image he had of the whole thing that became Narnia. There's a fawn standing in the snow, holding an umbrella next to a lantern out in the woods with a bunch of packages under his other arm. And that was the image that came to his head. And from that, he built all of the Chronicles of Narnia. So I think that moment is really important to get right. And I think they did
it is the image. It is the image that the first image I immediately think of when I think of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like
if you did a minimalist painting of just that with the red scarf being a pop of color, it's a lamppost in the snow and a fawn holding an umbrella. I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
You probably don't even need the fawn either. You probably just need the lamppost in the snow.
The lamppost in the snow.
Yeah.
And maybe the umbrella on. You could put the umbrella like next to it just to be
like,
I don't know how to draw fawn.
And leaning against it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Where's our artist friends?
I can't draw.
I mean, I could sketch it, but it's like not the realism that I would want to see in that type of artwork.
I would just be worried about drawing him from the backside and making it inappropriate because he's standing facing away from you in the snow.
Yeah.
He's not wearing pants.
All of a sudden you look down, you're like, I gave him too much booty. Like, he's delicious.
No.
Another change that I think, I don't know how I feel about it, but in the book and in the BBC, it was when Peter kills the wolf, it seems a little bit more deliberate, where in the 2005 version, literally he's holding the knife, but it's the wolf that lunges on him and knocks him over. In the movie, he's like choking him weirdly with his, I guess, paws. He's choking him. And so there's a little bit more of where, you know, Peter has to have some action in this. They don't show it. They don't show any of it. Like, literally, in the 2000 version, you just know that it happens, you know, and then all of a sudden the wolf just kind of like kills over it, and then they show the end of Edmund's sword or of Peter's sword. So like, I'm like, they really didn't want to show the dog any,
but they still showed it in the dog. And then what was the comment of like needing to clean the sword or something?
It's in the book too.
It's in the book too.
Yeah.
That to me, that just sounds like. That sounds like C.S. Lewis did some like author research, and like there was a swordsman going, "Yeah, you got to clean your sword afterwards." He's like,
because otherwise I
want to keep that in the book. That's what I imagine.
Or maybe it's something that he's read before and he had a beef about. Leo, they put that dirty sword back in the shade. You know, where it becomes suddenly it's your pet peeve. So
yeah.
I also really liked how the movie version expanded on the battle. It gave it it gave Susan something to do. I mean,
Yeah.
in the book, it felt like she was kind of staying off the side, but here she was an active participant. And the same thing with the war in general. I mean, that felt so small in the books, and here's this massive scope, and you feel the weight of the war that they're taking part in and the war that they left.
Mhm.
Are we talking about the likes and dislikes at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Because-
doing likes first, and then we'll hit dislikes. So,
Okay.
are you
Then
saying
wait.
dislike?
I'll wait.
Okay. Or if you have a neutral, because I'm getting ready to do a neutral. It's a like. I think that the 2005 did it better when the girls, Aslan's resurrected and he comes back and they have to go back. When the lion is flying in the BBC version, it's so funny, and he's doing this breathing, and the breathing is just so weird. But it's the breathing, it's the magic. And at first, me and my son were like, "What is going on with this? Why is he making it sound so weird in the BBC version?"
The breath
It's
of
like
life.
literally, it's like every 2 or 3 seconds, it's like, and it's like, what is happening? But I think that just the whole, they don't show any flying. They hop on and go in the 2005 version. That was fine for me. I like that. Versus the hilariousness that was the 80s version. That was funny. I can't be mad about it. I'm not even gonna say I hated it. It was the BBC version was trying some things.
It's always good to try new things.
Listen, like I said, the Queen's makeup and the BBC version apparently was my entire early 2000s makeup look. Dark eyes, like pale skin, and then like enough color to show that I had lips. Okay, like zero blush. Like it was bad.
It was a look. It was a look. I do love the Queen's look, and that back of that outfit though that she wore, like that did not look comfortable.
No. To me, when it looks like you took two like cardboard like pads and like placed it on the front and the back, and it's just a straight line across and a straight line in the back. Like I hate those dress looks. Like I'm like, what is holding it up?
That is why she's so angry. Get out of that. I'd be cranky too. That's horrible. Anybody have any thoughts on? So it's springtime when Lucy says after Aslan dies, and she's like, "I'm so cold." People were and during the live stream, it's still springtime. But any thoughts on why she was saying I'm so cold there before they find out that he's still alive? Is it that brief period of time? Did it feel like winter was coming back, or was it just her? Was she just chilly? Because I'm like, I was wondering about little
I
lines
took it as a
running.
double meaning because they pretty much. I'm going to be a little blunt with this. They fell asleep on a corpse. A corpse does not have its own heat. So therefore, you laying next to one, it's going to steal your heat. That's
and on a stone table.
Yeah, and a stone table.
And a stone table.
At nighttime.
Two cold items. So there is the physical cold, but I also think it does have that deeper meaning of she has experienced a loss. Of, like this might be Lucy's first experience with death, like an actual someone close to her, assuming Lucy's
rather than
age and stuff.
The concept of death.
Yes.
I think because they're worried about their dad because of the war, so they have it in the abstract, but then all of a sudden she sees it up close, and the one that she sees is like
very brutal. Yeah,
very, man.
Like, and very rough. And I mean, because even just watching it in both movies, you're watching bits and clips, so it's not as blatant, but it's still it's
really
the imagery.
hard to watch.
Yes, definitely.
And it could be like the release of adrenaline, right?
Yes.
This is like watching that happening, and then like when the adrenaline releases from your body, you do get you start shaking, you get cold feeling.
Exactly. So I think it's a bit of both. Like, but I took it for her. It's more she says it in the literal sense of I'm cold, but she actually means metaphorical, like without knowing she means metaphorical, because I don't think she would quite understand it. It's just like, I feel cold literally, but I also have this other feeling. I'm going to call it cold as well.
Right. And so you guys, let's go ahead and more if you have worse changes, or they can still be kind of neutral changes also.
Go for your gripes. We've been
guys.
curious what you have.
So my gripe with the movie is that at the end of the day, even though I love it, right? Me, an adult or a high school student who experienced the movie, I love it. My kids can't sit through it because it is so uncomfortable. And the war scenes are so violent. Even though they don't show any blood, they show animals dying and turning to stone, and they don't shy away from that. And while I think it's important to, have those conversations in like a safe space, it's really hard to watch for some young kids. And I think thinking about who the movie was made for, I don't think it was made for me, an adult. I think it was made for kids. And it is hard to watch in those. I mean,
even as an adult, like I watch.
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, it's
when
hard
I'm
for
watching.
me to grow up.
He's literally
violent.
He's giving Peter a sword, saying that you're going to basically be leading this war. You need to learn how to do this. And then whenever others want to help him fight the wolf, he goes, no, this is Peter's fight. It's like, it's so deliberate that you want this child to kill this wolf. It is a little like, it is kind of jarring. I love
that. And it was 2 chances to kill the wolf, technically.
Yeah.
He missed the first
time.
Yeah, failed. And I just,
I think it's really interesting in kids' movies that we have a really hard time showing affection or saying certain words. Like sometimes people get real worried about certain language, and like not the bad words, but we get real finicky about the language that we put in kids' movies. But we have no problem showing a war happen right in front of you, or a murder.
Well, yeah. If you put a laugh track with it, it might as well be Looney Tunes segment.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem just with this movie, but this movie, because it is so epic and it is modeled after the battle scene that you see there feels very much like the Lord of the Rings epic fight scenes that came out in 2001 and in those years. It feels very much like it was modeled after the Lord of the Rings movies with a smaller budget and made for children.
Yeah, it's like they wanted, just in Disney movies, and Pixar movies, they try to have something for the parents, and you kind of it's a fine line, because you can't go too far for the parents on the war scene and excitement, because then you're going to lose the kids.
Yeah. So my children bawl because we tried to watch it together, and they just started crying. One of the griffins gets turned into stone and falls out of the sky and shatters on a rock.
Oh my God, when it shattered, I was like, there is no
coming back from that, my friend.
No,
that
one is all the way dead.
With Teenage Kid was like, we've seen this before in Teenage when he shatters, because there's a finality there.
Yeah,
that's, even though it's a movie, it's understood. So even Teenage Kid goes, at that part.
Because the other ones, you see Aslan breathe life back into them, and they're not stone anymore. But
which, by the way,
turns into pebbles.
He created the Narnia world.
I was about to say he made all of Narnia.
Yeah, he had that power the whole time.
Sorry.
And that's what bugs me the most. Is like, he had that power the whole time. Then it's like, oh, now I'm going to breathe life on everyone. It's like, dude, you needed 4 kids to come to Narnia. So Aslan could defeat the White Witch, but drove me crazy a little bit in 2005, because I was like, why is he defeating her?
When we've done all this build up for Peter's going to lead everything.
I mean, it's like Game of Thrones with the Night King. Like,
it's like, what? what was the purpose again?
Yeah, so either way. So yes,
Now-
there was, even though Aslan breathes on these stones, that shattering was like a
Mhm.
final thing. So continue, Ashley.
And Lucy can come and heal people that are injured, but if they are injured for too long, now I know that in this particular movie you don't see a lot of blood because that's not allowed in kids' movies. That's why in Disney's Tangled, she stabs him in the side and then the blade comes out and it's completely clean because it used to be bloody and audiences reacted so strongly to that. So all they did was take the blood off and then they were like, oh, it's fine now, even though the intent is the same. Dude still got stabbed, like,
Yeah.
and he's dying. But those people out on the field, some of them are not going to come back from that. However, I will say that making the battle more epic and expansive does allow for more character growth, like you were saying. For Edmund, for Peter, Susan,
For the
and Lucy
centaur, I was fighting for
for
the
the
centaur.
centaur.
Yeah, you fall for.
I was like, he lost his sword, and nope, here's another one.
Yep.
The unicorn that only says 2 words.
Oh god, I got sad on that one. I was like, how many unicorns are there? Honestly,
Yeah.
I know.
we only saw one. Oh, and then Philip the horse.
Philip the horse.
No, he lives, by the way, not to ruin it for Peter,
No,
but
he
lives.
Sorry.
But you see him later, and he's like, I'm not as young as I used to be.
Yes. That was so cute. I like.
I like.
I do like that they bring
I
Philip
loved it.
back. It's a nice.
And one of the changes that I think I wish that they'd have put a little bit more of this into the 2005 version that they did in the BBC version and in the book is I think that they explained a little bit better why they didn't want to entertain Lucy's, fantasies. Like, because usually with kids, you're like, oh, it's just your imagination or whatever, but you don't try to cut it off. And they explain better, I think, in the BBC version that it's because they think that the war is getting to her head and making her mentally unable.
Yeah.
She can't cope. She can't cope with
this.
The
is
war.
how she's processing
That's
it.
why she's doing this. Because otherwise, you think, why are they really, So when Edmund is entertaining it and then not, and then she's crying, it's almost like, even my daughter's like, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when we were watching. And then when I was watching with my son's like, yeah, they probably think the war is really getting her. And I'm like, what a difference that little bit made. That, because otherwise you think they're just not being nice. Or maybe they're all upset. They're not being nice to her about her little fantasy world. It's explained a little bit better in the book and the movie that it's because they're afraid that the war is making her a little messed up in a non unhealthy way.
And their way of fixing it is just saying, stop talking about it and it'll go away.
Right.
Very
We're normally,
nice.
Yeah, that works.
Normally if a little child is just making up an imaginary world, you're just like, oh, okay, huh?
Well, and that was actually the
You don't
premise in I'm trying to think of the premise of the movie. I forget the movie's name. I think Wake or Dream or something like that. But the way the little boy, sorry, ruin the plot here because it's the ending, but the way the little boy has comprehended cancer is that he creates the canker man. And the canker man killed his mom. And so that was how he processes it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wish that the 2005 version would have just clarified that a little bit more. And that it's not just the 4 of their dynamics that they pick on each other. And now he's just being mean to Lucy. That the reason why they really don't want this thoughts entertained is because they think it's unhealthy, her unhealthy way of dealing
Unhealthy
with
fixation.
Yeah.
Because she's blocking out the reality. I think they think that she's like slipping into this other world to not be able to, because she can't handle reality. And that's really what the book is the book in the BBC version really hit on that. The war is really getting to her. And they say it, we can't, let her entertain these thoughts because the war is just messing with her head. So, yeah. But I just noticed that having the two different kids watching each one, how one of them immediately caught that, and the other one was like, "Well, why are they being they're so mean to her?" Like why? It didn't even make sense. Why is she so upset about this? And when she runs into the professor, and she's like hugging on to him. You know what I mean? It just would have tied that in really, really nicely had they emphasized that. Just a line would have done that.
Yeah, I think that would have done well.
Between
and even
Peter and Susan.
Even throwing in, like it was mentioned when we were doing our watch party, the bug reminded of the humming of the scout planes.
Yeah, because we were like, what is the bee for? And it was Maggie that in the comments that was like, the buzzing of the bee probably sounded like the faint buzzing of the fighter jets from the German fighter.
Yeah, well, the scout planes that came before the bombers.
Yes. Yeah, just that light buzz that you hear in the distance, and you're like, oh, that's going on. So hearing, because she hears the bee and it's in the window, and she does kind of like do a little, like, we don't know what that means though. But yes, that makes perfect sense. So
yeah,
thank Mama Maggie for that one. And we are getting close to our time. So any other thoughts, final thoughts, general thoughts?
I still say 2005 version is the best adaptation of the book. But it's mostly I think for me, number one, besides technology changing so much in so many years, but I also feel that Edmund's arc was just so much better and everything. And I wish it, in the rewatch of all these, it made me want to make Edmund the star of the movie than Lucy. Like I was actually, now I kind of feel let down. Like it's like when you write a whole story and you go, oh, this wasn't the story, the real story.
Yeah, actually that was the story. Like,
Edmund's story, this could have been told from Edmund's point of view.
Somebody write that.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Somebody, please. But I got too much.
Somebody write that.
There was a thought I had now. I know I have it written down in my notes. The scene. There's a scene that Natalie clipped it. And when we got to, my son and I were watching, when we got to it, my son was like, right? And I had did the same thing when Natalie was watching, and she made a TikTok or
and real and TikTok, but I'm assuming it's Lucy's line.
Yes.
She goes, oh, so you knew all along it would be all right, and we cried our heads off. And I'm like, who's the real villain here? He knew he was going to be fine, and he was like, hey, girls, follow me to my death. And then, you know what? Hey, we're part ways here.
Yeah.
Knowing they're going to follow him further. Watch the whole thing.
Yeah. She totally calls
lose their innocence in a way. Lose their innocence in a way by witnessing his death, and then go, it's fine. Look.
The reason why I'm fine is because
sacrifice.
Of this. Yeah, and he's like, the real reason I'm okay, and he tells them why, which he does that in the movie also. He explains, but on the BBC version, the girl calls him out and it's like, so we cried our heads off all night, and you knew all along you were going to be fine, Like it's like right, like
one saw the girls. That's my thing. No one saw the girls. They weren't needed there to emphasize the con, or like where you have that believable person when you're doing a con, because they're not in on the con. So their reaction is believable and you think, oh, it's legit. They weren't needed because no one saw them. So therefore, why not clue them in?
Yeah.
Well, and from a story perspective, absolutely. But the peek behind the curtain of they're doing like the walking with him is like the walking with the Stations of the Cross, and then he goes and he was trying to go real hard on that metaphor and have all those pieces there.
So then he lost the chance to foreshadow, where he could have just had Aslan say, oh, see you later, and they go, what do you mean see you later? Wait, and then they follow him, and then maybe he's like, I tried to tell you.
Would have had the same effect, because Jesus did the same thing. Like he had clues, like I'm coming back.
Yeah,
but they didn't really listen.
They weren't really listening.
It could have been the same thing with Aslan.
Yeah. Like he could have been telling them, don't worry, I know this looks bad, but everything's going to be fine. Like he could have drawn clues that everything. everything's going to be okay, even though it looks ominous. You know, and so in the BBC version, though, so the girl is really upset, and then he basically says, "Hey, I can fly. You want to go with me?" And they are like, "Yeah!" And my son's like,
All's forgiven.
Immediately
Cool.
forgiven. Immediately forgiven.
Cool flying
Wow.
line. What's not
He
to
can
like?
fly.
So you can fly. We can have a ride. Let's go. Everything's great now.
What superpower makes everything better? Oh, flying.
Flying.
Yeah, it doesn't adhere to the physics of the world at times, to me, such as like Aslan always being able to unturn people from stone and such like that. But still, yeah, movie wise, 2005 is a good version. Book is still for the most part there, just certain parts didn't age well. In 1988 version, these certain parts didn't age well because just technology at the time and the style of acting at the time that was acceptable.
Yeah.
Just like when we transitioned from plays to film, the overacting that you would get in a play because you want even people in the back row to see you doesn't do well when you can do a close up.
Yeah.
Which is funny now because TikToks that do really well are the people who overreact and can do the facial expressions. So we're going right back.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we mentioned like the BBC version had all of the things. But yeah, I will not get over those little cartoon figures that didn't really move but then flew away. So it's like the most basic of cartoon characters. They had the unicorn, just various animals that they're like, we're not even gonna try and do costumes for this, guys. We're just gonna make cartoons.
It made me think of like I think it's He-Man, the I have the power. Like that was the same drawing style in my mind. Oh, I will say another thing. 2005 actually showed them rescuing Edmund. Whereas the book and the 1988 version was like, hey, we got him. Don't ask questions. Everything's in the past.
It just happened. Don't worry. I like the scene that we got where they're on the river. But yeah, I totally agree. Like when he drops that sword into the ice, how does he know that it's not gonna, like, where the breaks are gonna be? Very risky, but yeah, I like that we get that scene in the 2005 version. That was a good one. It just added to the intensity of the threat. I feel like you felt that threat a little bit more. The scene, the whole running away scenes dragged out a little bit in the BBC version. Like they took a lot, like they made it seem like they took a long time in the 2005 when Mrs. Beaver is like, we've got to get jam and got to get all of these things. But I felt like it really took a long time in the BBC version. Like
it took a long time. It took a long time in the book. And then the thing that kills me is that in the 2005 version, they followed Edmund to see him walk into the castle, and then were able to get back and start.
You still had time to do that? I'm like,
no wonder things were cutting close and people are on your heels. Don't follow Edmund. Like they didn't. Like it was. The logic behind of not following Edmund made sense to me in the book and the 1988. Now that is a cool fact.
That's true.
Oh, yep.
That's true.
They were all in the same writing group, and I think there was a third famous author in there too. I'm trying to remember his name.
Hold on. Was it Chesterton? Was Chesterton friends with them, or am I just? Let's find out. Joking.
Yeah, as for me, I can easily understand how the books are such a classic, a timeless classic, and how the 2005 movie, it does have its flaws, but it still will hold up against the test of time. It was true to the nature of the book. It expanded on parts that really should have been expanded on. We didn't discuss it here, but the scene with Edmund in the frozen prison with Mr. Tumnus, that wasn't in the books, and that was such a fantastic scene to show why he eventually, realizes he made a mistake and realizes that's not too late for him to go back and side with his family.
Yeah, I did love that scene. Why didn't we say that one in our favorite? Yeah, I like that addition. That was really good. Because and they show it in the BBC movie where you know, she brings him some food, but he's not. The situation doesn't seem as dire as it does in the movie. The movie brings on the 2005 movie brings on that threat, that sense of danger is so much stronger. You know, like it's ramping up. You feel it a lot more. You feel more like Edmund's in danger, you know, with this woman than you do, I think, in the BBC version or in the book.
Yeah, and Adriana got it. It's Hugo Dyson was the third.
There was a whole group of them.
Right.
But Hugo Dyson was the... Dorothy Sayers was in it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All of his children, or Christopher and his brother.
Oh, it's fascinating how many brilliant people were in there.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder with like the AuthorTube family, like how many of us are gonna have our books published and be like, oh no, actually all these people talk to each other. There's actual film documentation of it.
We used to hang out on the interwebs.
Did they ever meet in person? No, it was a different time. It was a different time.
No one was allowed.
We had to be there. We weren't allowed. Oh my gosh. We are at time. I feel like there's still things that I'm missing because I have my notes. But maybe we'll do we'll talk about C.S. Lewis and the whole series one day.
Prince Caspian, get around to it eventually.
I know. There's so many. We have such a long list. It's crazy.
I keep adding to it because every now and then I think of something.
Yeah, and then someone suggested to me because we strictly do books that have been adapted into movies, and someone's like, "Well, you can do scripting the book flips the script one day," and I was like, "That sounds like a cool idea," because I really want Labyrinth so bad.
Labyrinth would be a good one. There was one that I saw where they created A League of Their Own.
Yeah, so that would have to be a special though. So we might do a special after we get through some of our list. It's super long and ever growing.
Yep.
Ashley, it was so much fun having you here to chat with us.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Anybody else have any final thoughts before we wrap it up? I think we're good. We're gonna start.
It's worth the read and worth the watch.
Yes.
Totally
watch the 80s movie too.
Yes, you just gotta watch it. Just watch it.
Even if you talk during the whole time, just do it. It's worth it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, they both ignored politics and news and so. Oh, yep. Wow, that is so cool, man. That really just sounds cool. Like I wanted to be in that group. All right, let's start with Ashley. We'll go reverse around, and everybody just let everybody know where they can find you at and all of the good things that you have coming up.
Okay. I am Ashley B Pedigo. I write books for children, mostly middle grade and picture books. I am currently on a self-imposed deadline, so hopefully I will have a draft done before spring break. And if you want to watch me slowly descend into that spiral, I'll be on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Yeah. And I'm also on Instagram where I've learned to knit socks this year. And I'm just talking a lot about sock knitting, and it's a good time.
And you can find me at Running2Write, at Scripting the Book, at Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks. Can't wait to see you all there.
All right. So I'm Morgan Lee. You can find me on my YouTube channel, and all my other links are listed below. And then, like Ben said, I do Scripting the Book, and I do this show as well. So you can find me there.
Awesome.
Natalie Locke. I do Flash Fiction Live with Change Author. We alternate on each other's channels every Saturday at 9 a.m. Said this past one because we were taking a break since Flash Fiction February occurred. We do breathe, I admit. But I am still in the process of doing my Flash Fiction series, and I just had a video post today at 12, which I totally forgot about it because I recorded it back in February. And then people are commenting on it, and I'm like, what did I? Oh, that's right. I was nice. Past Natalie was nice to future Natalie. And So now present Natalie needs to be nice to future Natalie and keep this buffer going.
Awesome. And I am Nia, the Vixen of Fiction. I'm here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram and Twitch. And we're all linked below. Next up, we have Dune and then Bridgerton Season 2. So we're going to be doing those in April. This is the only one that we're doing for the month of March because we all have an event coming up. We're going to be super busy towards the end of the month. But we should be able to keep doing 2 books a month going forward. If we ever have one, of course, we'll keep you posted. So up next for next month, Dune. If someone's doing a watch party, as soon as we know, I will post it on the Instagram. Natalie did this one, and her watch party is linked below if you want to go back and watch us getting our thoughts in real time. And so if someone wants
just
to
play
do
the movie offside because you're not going to hear it. You're just going to hear our commentary, but we'll tell you where we are, like when we press play.
Exactly. So if someone wants to do Dune, just let me know, and
my husband.
Love to do that.
He's not part of the writing community, but you want to
That's
talk to somebody who has read all of the Dune books.
Wow. That is cool.
Recently. And we'll talk about them. We'll talk about them for a very long time.
We only have an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You don't want to invite my husband on to talk about Dune.
Do you want to clarify whether that we're doing the 2021 version?
I loved the movie.
Yeah, I like the new movie too. I know that some people were not a fan, but I had watched the other ones also. And so I'm like, same thing. Things don't age very well all the time. And it's just like, I can actually watch this one without being like, the whole time, like,
I liked Sting.
It's another one where there's a lot of overacting.
Agreed.
The 80s, what a time. I'm paraphrasing, obviously
gosh.
not the 80s.
I will be doing Bridgerton. I don't have any dates yet, but when we watch those, I will of course be posting. I don't know if I'm going to do a watch party for the whole season, but probably just the first and the last. So if anybody's doing them, as soon as I find out and we have dates and times, we will be posting them on Instagram. So if you guys would like to join us, you can. And I do know that for Bridgerton, that Zara Hoffman is going to be joining me for those ones. And of course, any of these lovely people that want to join for those can as well. So that is all we have. Thank you guys for watching. Everybody, hello. If you're watching on the replay, we're so glad that you watched. And I think that is all we've got. I'm trying to think, I guess I should probably say I also do AuthorTubers React, which we'll be doing next Saturday, by the way, with some other fabulous hosts. Whoops, I forgot. Yes, very, very busy. And that is all. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm going to remember to hit the end broadcast. Bye.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.